Bobbles! Look at all these bobbles. Today we're going to make this intermediate pattern on the loom called the Bobble Button Newsboy hat. You can make it in multiple sizes with any even pegged numbered loom. So let's begin making this pattern today. Welcome to GoodKnitKisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. The Bobble Button Newsboy hat pattern can be found in the links below. You can make it in any size with any even number peg loom, and we will go over how to do that. Also, I'm going to show you an alternate visor if you'd like to do so as well. Let's jump into the materials you're going to need. For supplies, be sure and click down on the link below to get what I used on my hats. You can use any loom that's an even number of pegs. It has to be able to be worked in the round, so it can be an actual round loom, an oval. You can use a rectangular loom that can be used in the round with like a slider or something. That's fine. Always use a yarn appropriate to your gauge of loom. I am using the KB, the Knitting Board Chunky Loom Set. It's 5/8 in a large gauge loom with appropriate 5 or 6 weight yarn. If you want to use a small gauge loom with worsted weight, number 4 weight yarn, that's okay too. Just make sure and knit to the lengths and not necessarily all the repeats in the pattern. And you'll also need, of course, your loom hook, and you'll need 1 to 2 stitch markers. The pattern calls for 1 just for showing where you're starting and stopping in the round, but in the beginning you can use 2 to mark where our flap handle is for the visor. All right, let's jump in for instructions on the visor. As you can see, the Bobble Button Newsboy hat has a really wide visor. It's about 2/3 of the stitches around, and then you just pin back and sew in some superficial buttons. They don't actually unbutton, but they have these little peaked edges. And then the front of the visor actually kind of sticks down more flat against the head. If you want it larger, if you make a larger one, it will stick out a little bit, but it's still a soft brim. If you do not want it such a wide brim, you can adapt and take part of this pattern here. This is the Baker's Boy cap. This one is casting on 1/3 of the stitches and then increases to half the amount of stitches and then connects in the round. And so it's a shorter in width brim. So you could combine these two patterns if you want to. This brim is in garter stitch, but the bobble that we'll do today, the Bobble Button Newsboy, is in seed stitch, but you can adapt it if you want. And I have a link to the video up in the top corner or down below. You can do left or right-handed. All right, let's jump in to casting on. All right, so we need to cast on. We are using 2/3 of the pegs of whatever loom you're using. I'm going to tell you the numbers for these for the cast on and a very short math lesson so that you can do this on any loom. Be sure and click down the link below to get these numbers again if you need. For the 24 peg loom, you're going to cast on 17. For the 36 peg loom, cast on 25, and for the 48 peg loom, cast on 33. You're going to want a couple of stitch markers to mark the first and last pegs, and when we cast on, if you are a left-handed knitter, you're going to cast on from left to right, so that when we work in a circular fashion, you're going to be going counterclockwise, and likewise for a right-handed knitter, you're going to cast on from right to left, and it'll continue going that way when we get to that point. All right, so in order for doing the math, you need to take your pegs and divide it by 3. So in this one, for example, this is 24 pegs. So divided by 3 is 8. If I take my 8 and I multiply it times 2, I get 16. So we're 8 plus 8 is 16. Then I need to add 1 more, so we have an odd number. So this is my 17 pegs. You can apply that to any of these. All right, let's begin with the true cable cast on. I'm going to show you left-handed first and then right-handed. The remaining part of the video will be right-handed. I am going to be using my right hand on this, but it does look a little different depending on how you do it. So we're going to put a slip knot on, and if you need slower techniques like slip knots and things like that, I'll give you links to my basic videos down below. I'm going to start on this left peg here. Okay, I'm going to be working in the direction of my other peg, and see how it's really far away. Ignore these other small ones. If you need to put something down to ignore them, then do that. Go ahead and put your slip knot on here. Don't make it very tight. Okay, just a regular slip knot, a little bit loose. And practice taking your yarn the opposite you would for a unit stitch. We're actually working in between the peg we're on and the peg we're going to, coming from the back to the front. On this first slip knot, it doesn't matter quite as much, but you'll see why in a minute. All right, then we're going to go underneath, just like making a knit stitch, and pull downward, making a loop. Okay, while it's still on my tool, I'm just going to flip it and place it onto the next loop, or onto the next stitch. Okay, then we're going to take our yarn between those two pegs and pull it to the back, and it tightens that up. All right, while it's in the back, go around the front of the peg that you're working on. So don't take it around the front like this, like you would a unit stitch. You're going from the back to the front, okay? And then we're going to pull downward to make another loop. You could pull it out a little bit more with your fingers, and then flip it either with your fingers or flip it with the tool, okay? This is a true cable cast on. It gives this nice, clean, detailed cable edge, and when we pull on it, it cinches it back up. I do want to show you what it looks like if you try wrap it the other direction. It actually creates too much bulk right in the front here. So if I pull downward this way and I do this and I pull on it, it makes this twice as bulky here. So it's actually 2 layers, and that's not right. So just undo that, come from the back, wrap around to the front, make a loop, pull down, and flip. Okay, and then when you get all the way to that stitch marker here, you've cast it on. You'll be ready for the first row. All right, let's jump over to right-handed and do that part real quick now. Okay, make our slip knot and place it on our peg. Okay, take our yarn, coming from the back, wrap around. You can pull down on this tail here so it stays really well. Pull downward to make a new loop. Okay, and then we're going to flip it and place it on that peg, and then take our yarn and pull it to the back. Let me do that one more time slow. Come around. We're going in the direction that we're working, in between the next peg and the peg you're on. Okay, pull downward to make a loop, take that and flip it. Okay, and then take our yarn and go in between these. So come to the front of there and go in between them to get all the slack out of there. Okay, one more time. Come around, make a loop, pull downward, and then flip it and place it. And then take that yarn and pull it. Okay, continue until you get to this last peg here, and maybe just a moment. All right, we've come to our last stitch. This is where my stitch marker was, and I went ahead and took it off. I took off both stitch markers so I don't confuse myself. Later on, I'll show you where this beginning part is for your rounds, because I want to make it really clear. So you're going to start by working a unit stitch and a purl stitch, but the first one is called a half stitch. Now really it looks like a unit stitch, but because of the way I have this pattern written, and if someone decided that they wanted to use an E-wrap stitch, I'm being specific because I want this stitch to be worked in a particular direction. So you're going to work around the outside of the stitch and lift right over. Okay, and that's the way that one goes. When you're working that first stitch on the opposite side, you do the same thing. You work around from the outside of the stitch. All right, so to begin the seed stitch on row 1, you're going to start by making a unit stitch, or you can use a flat knit stitch. Knitting that over and then making the next stitch purl. And then continuing that on U-wrap and purl, U-wrap, purl all the way down, and the last stitch will be purl. Pause your video and go ahead and work that first row. When we come back, we'll work the next row together. Okay, so for row 2, you're going to work the half stitch again. We're working from the outside around and knit that. And then now you're going to make a purl stitch first and then a knit stitch. So we're purl and then you knit. And by the way, the reason why I'm not working with an E-wrap is because the E-wrap tends to be too loose when working this visor, and I think the flat or the U-knit stitch work much better. Okay, so continue working that row, pause your video, and I will meet you at the end of the row. See you soon. You're going to repeat rows 1 to 2 until you have 1.5 to 2 inches of your brim. So for the small baby size, I do 1.5, and for the child and adult, you can do 2 inches. Use to your discretion if you want it a little shorter. You're going to need to remember, though, that you will have a button on that. So this is the part that's going to be the flap that's sticking down. Okay, so that's about this length here, and then you're going to need enough to put that button on there. So if you want a small little baby button and not as long as a brim, then you're welcome to do that. Go ahead and work your length, and when you are done, make sure you end after a row 2 and you're at the end opposite your yarn tail. Pause your video and I'll see you then. All right, so you've worked your visor, and your working tail, working yarn is opposite of your beginning tail, and we're going to start working the true cable cast on just as you did before, and go ahead and pull that on down, and we're going to continue on in the round. So just as you did before, and go all the way until you get to this very first peg, and you're going to place an extra one here, so you will have 2 loops here. Pause your video and I'll meet you there. Now your knitting is completely in the round. You've got 2 stitches on this very last peg here. This will be where we're going to put our new stitch marker. Now you could have left this here on the one with the tail, and that works too, but I'm trying to do this to point out where you're going to need to notice where to start round 1 and 2, especially because you have a seed stitch and it needs to alternate every time you do a round. So on only this first round, we have a foundation round where the very first peg does something totally different. We're going to purl these 2 stitches together. So take your yarn that's in between the 2, put it down below, and simply just pull up that yarn. Sorry. There we go. Make a loop. Take that loop off, and before you place it down, go ahead and put your stitch marker on if you have already taken it off, and then pull that loop. Okay, now we're beginning our seed stitch, and for this foundation round, you're going to start by knitting 1 and then purling 1, same stitch as you did before. So I am working right-handed. I'm going to continue going to the left right here. That sounded funny, but I'm going to work in the in a clockwise fashion or to the left. And if you are working left-handed, or you would prefer working counterclockwise, then this next stitch will go over here. All right, so continue working, and then when we come back, we'll look at the next round. Pause your video and I'll see you there. All right, so we've done our foundation round, and we want to do round 1 with knit, purl, knit, purl. So make sure that you notice that you finished with a knit on that foundation round. You're beginning with the same stitch because you're working in a spiral when you work in the round, and it'll start stacking on top of each other to complete that pattern. So round 1, knit, purl, repeat all the way around. Pause your video and I'll see you for round 2. All right, round 2, come to our marker, and we're going to purl, knit, purl, knit. All right, so go ahead and repeat that round, and pause your video, and I'll meet you back in a moment. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and repeat that again, rounds 1 and 2, one more time for the baby loom, and then repeat it 2 more times for the larger ones, and then you're going to repeat round 1 once more. So for the baby loom, you need 2 more rounds of seed stitch. For the larger ones, you're going to need 4 more rounds of seed stitch plus that extra round, and then we will move on to the main part of the hat for the bobble. Okay, pause your video and I'll meet you at that point. All right, we're ready for the bobble pattern. We need to do the setup row around, which is just E-wrapping all stitches. So go all the way around one time, E-wrapping. I still like to go only like 5 or 6 stitches, not the whole way around, and then do some more. So go ahead and do that. Pause your video. I'll meet you back up for your first bobble. See you soon. Finally, we're at the bobbles. This is where the pattern gets a little bit more complicated. Really, it's just taking a moment to look behind your work and lift up and over the correct spot. So you do need a well-lit area. I do suggest having a light colored yarn. If you started with something darker, that's okay too. Just make sure that you have a well-lit area or something to be able to see this stitch a little bit easier. So the first thing you need to do is on the round 1 for the bobbles, you're going to knit that first stitch in an E-wrap. So go ahead and E-wrap and knit over, and then you're going to E-wrap the bobble stitch 5 times. So this applies to any of the rounds. So let's just look at this just for how to do a bobble. So E-wrap and knit that 5 times. I'm just going to set it here. 1, 2, 3. If you notice, I'm pushing it down after I'm done with it, and I'm pulling on this for slack. 4 and 5. Okay, so you get a lot of extra knitting here. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to look inside our loom, and you see the yarn coming from the previous peg. Follow it downward, and you're going to see that stitch. You can pull this back, and you're going to see this stitch here. Let me pull this around, and you can see this previous row down below, this stitch here. You're going to pick that up, looks like a purl bump, place it onto that peg. I don't want to split this yarn, so I'm getting the whole thing and I'm going to place it onto the bobbled peg. So now we have 2 stitches there. Go ahead and E-wrap and knit over the next stitch, okay, and leave that there so you know that's a bobble. You can go ahead and knit it over, but I suggest leaving it there so you know what you've completed and that you've done it in the right order. It's no fun to go back and have to undo that bobble. So one thing I discovered that was faster on this pattern is actually to go through and work a bunch of the bobbles. So I'm going to go ahead and do the bobble. 1, 2, 3, oops. 4, 5. I think I counted that right. And now go ahead and E-wrap the next bobble, or then E-wrap the next stitch and knit over. So there's an E-wrap in between each bobble, and then do the next bobble. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I mean, just like knit all the extra 5 stitches there. And you could go all the way in the round if you want. Maybe leave like the last stitch not done with making a bobble, which would be this one here, so that when you come to the back here, you can easily see the stitches that need to be pulled over, and it's actually faster to work that round. I found it was like a lightning speed faster when I did it this way. So you can see this one is the E-wrap stitch, and this is the bobble. So I'm going to follow this E-wrap over and then go down until I see that purl stitch, and then I just pick it up. This is just the back of the E-wrap stitch. It's not actually a purl, but it's that E-wrap from the row below. And then we put it on here and then move on to the next one. Pick up and put onto the loom. So you can see it becomes a much faster process just doing all the pickups in one round after you've knit all those extra stitches. And when you get to the end here, then you can go ahead and finish that last stitch, knit over all those bobbles, and then your round 2 is going to be E-wrap all. So you E-wrap 1, make a bobble, repeat all the way around, and then the round 2 you're going to E-wrap all. Then round 3 you just alternate. You actually make a bobble on the very first one and then E-wrap, and then alternate around, make bobble, E-wrap, make bobble, E-wrap, and then the next round you're E-wrapping. So you have a setup row of E-wrapping in between when you make those rounds. So what happens is you have a round where you have a bobble and then E-wrap, and then the next round up, it looks like it's a bobble row, but it's actually an E-wrap row in between so that you get them nice and spaced out. Otherwise it'd be too compact. And so it has a zigzag effect. Basically, you just repeat those 4 rounds a number of times until you get to the length that you want. Okay, so I want to jump to a visual aid of the adult size hat, and then of course here is the baby hat. So you're repeating those 4 rounds, and then you're repeating them 3 more times. So this would be 1, 2, 3, so a total of 4 repeats of the 4 rounds for the baby hat, which is actually 4 inches. For the child size hat, you're doing another set of repeats, and it's going to be about 5 inches. And for the adult, it goes to 6 inches, and it's yet 1 more repeat. So a good way to count these is if you go to the very beginning of where this band is, and you look at the lowest bobble, you can say 1, go straight up from there, 2, 3, 4, and this is a total of 4 repeats. But if you look at the math on the pattern, it says do these rounds here and then do 1, 2, 3 repeats. So you need to remember that you've got this one down here. So the baby is 4 all the way up, and then it's 5 and then 6 for the inches. So if you do work with a different yarn, it will be different. This one is a bulky weight 5 yarn, but this super bulky weight 5 yarn, I didn't have to do the extra set of rounds here because I already got to my 6 inches, and the measurement is from this band here. That's the shorter one, not with the visor, but from here. So if you're measuring, it's from here to here. All right, so go ahead and make your length, and when we get to the crown, we'll work that together. See you in a moment. So we're ready for the crown. I've knit to my desired length, just measured from here to the band, 4 inches for baby, 5 inches for child, and 6 for adult. And we are going to move every other stitch over. So you're going to go to the second stitch and move it to the first. Basically all the evens to the odds. And you can untwist it and set it right on there. Since it's an E-wrap, it's going to have that twisted stitch, and it might be hard to just move it with that twist. It's okay to untwist it. So move every other one over. Okay, and then after you do that, you're going to knit them together. So you're going to just use a U-wrap or flat knit and knit those 2 stitches together. Okay, and then we're going to skip the peg and knit these 2 stitches together. Oops. There we go. So you're just going to skip a peg, knit 2 stitches together, and continue. Okay, so don't forget to move all these pegs over, and you're going from whatever your peg count is down to half. You'll only have half the amount of stitches to work with the rest of the crown. All right, pause your video, and I'll meet you back up when you're finished with that round. All right, so now you've decreased by half. We're going to work 2 rounds of U-wrap knit and flat. So you're just going to U-wrap knit this and skip. You're still just going behind those pegs and skipping. Make sure that you're not pulling it way too tight, because we don't want to make these stitches super small. We still want them a nice size, because you are going to have a little bit of a ladder in between. So just keep going and work 2 rounds for the baby hat, and for the child and larger hat, work 3 total rounds. Then we will do the modified gathered bind off. All right, pause your video and I'll see you after those rounds. All right, so we are ready for our modified gathered bind off, and this one is going to be reduced half as much if you watched our basic beanie hat. There is a lesson down below. You can click for that video. But this is the modified gathered bind off, taking half the amount of stitches. This is on the 48 peg loom, and this is what it looks like using the 48 peg after we've done the technique here where we reduced by half first, worked several rounds, and now it's going to look like half of that number too. So this is a tremendous amount of reduction. So what you need to do is measure around 1.5 times around the perimeter of your loom, and then cut it. Okay, and now we're going to put the yarn down below the first stitch, and we're going to pull that yarn up through the loop as if to purl, Pull it right on through and then take it off the loom. Skip the next peg that has yarn on it. Okay. And then go underneath as if to purl, just as you just did. Take that off the loom. Skip that next peg with yarn. Go to the one after and go up as if to purl. You're going to go all the way around until you get to the very beginning, and pause your video and I'll meet you there. I'll see you in a moment. All right, so this is my last peg before my marker. I'm still going to skip behind it because I just did this one here. You can see it looks kind of like a star here, and it's got that nice big drawstring. We're going to go all the way down into, this is actually the third peg here after the stitch marker. I'm going to put my yarn above the stitch, and we're going to pull down below like we're making a knit stitch, and then we're just going to pull all the way through and take that loop off the loom, and now go to the next stitch we see and do the same thing. Yarn above, take the yarn and pull down and all the way through and take it off of the loom. Go to the next one and repeat until you have taken all of the loops off of the loom. Pause your video as you need to. Okay, I'm on the last stitch. I try not to pull those stitches too much. They have a lot of slack, so we're going to try and pull some of that out. All right, take this off the loom. Okay, you can see I have these nice big loops. I don't want all that, of course. I'm going to try and pull the slack out of it. Let me go ahead and pull some of this loop. Okay, see that loop there? It's going to get pulled some of that slack when I do this. So this is the loop that went around the first time, or the circle that went around. So I'm just going to keep pulling it, and that'll pull some of that slack out of those loops too. All right. So once we've got all the slack out, then we're just going to take our tapestry needle and work all the way around in here, pull it down and weave it in, and then we'll weave in this beginning one. Let me show you that. Okay, I've got my tapestry needle in, and I'm just going to go around these stitches just to make sure it's a nice secure join. And then I'm going to go down inside, turn inside out, pull it through, and then go through a few more stitches, and then we could just tie it off. Leave a loop, tie a knot, weave in a few more tails, and split the yarn here so it'll trap it in, and then cut that off. And so now we're just going to take our visor and pin it up. Okay, you can pin it at a 90-degree angle. You can kind of angle it out like this if you like, and you're going to get a button that you can fit your tapestry needle, the eye through that, or you can use a dental floss threader, and that works through a lot of buttons as well. And if you need to take your yarn and split it like this just to get a small thread to sew with, that works really great as well. And so you just sew these stitches together, and then when you're weaving in your tail here, remember this part is going to be pinned here. So if you're worried about doing seed stitch and need a tutorial, I've got a tutorial on how to weave in the seed stitch, but really it's just going to get hidden. So you can even use this one on this side to sew in part of your button here if you like. And you don't have to use a button like this one. I didn't use a button, but I would need to reinforce this because it's not pulling correctly. So I would need to take this point up here and sew that in. So you don't have to have a button, but this is what it looks like without one. This is one with a button. And of course, here's one with a button. And that's all you need to do. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial for the Bobble Button Newsboy hat. Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.